on top of here? Am I gonna like ruin this?
Make your whole thing go nuts.
Oh. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Debbie. I'm basically your entertainment for the next 30 minutes, so I apologize for that. I want to start out first by thanking Lung Cancer Initiative for having this event, especially in the Charleston area. And I would like to give a very heartfelt thank you to Cheryl LaCroix, who is always eager to help. And Cheryl, you just have helped me more than you'll ever know, so thank you so much. A delightful, unfortunate woman. That is how my oncologist describes me in the first clinical notes he ever wrote in my patient portal when I first met him. Mrs. Fitzgerald is a delightful, unfortunate woman. And I remember the first time I read it and I thought, well, he's got the delightful part down cold. But unfortunate, it seemed an odd word to describe me because my entire life, I've never thought of myself as unfortunate, quite the opposite. My husband Tim and I, we are both from Long Island, New York, and 1 week from tonight, we will be celebrating our 38th wedding anniversary. So now you know New York allows 10-year-olds to get married, right? But we don't just have a 38-year-old marriage. We have an amazing marriage, friendship, relationship. Everything that I have been through since my diagnosis, my husband has gone through, but even harder than I have. And I know that if the sky opened up and said, you can switch places with her, he would do it in a heartbeat with no questions asked. We have 3 amazing children, and I don't say they're amazing just because they're mine. They are simply just wonderful human beings. We're a very close family, and they too have been instrumental in getting me through this. When you get diagnosed, you're not the only person that gets diagnosed. Your whole family gets diagnosed. Your really close friends get diagnosed too. And my family has been nothing but supportive and loving. I've spent most of my life, my adult life, as a fitness professional. I'm a group fitness instructor. I absolutely love teaching classes. And I'm also a personal trainer with a specialty in Pilates. So I'm used to being on the other side of this equation, where I'm the person who helps people who are in pain or injured or after a surgery, or people who just want to feel better about themselves. And I've always loved that about my job. So when this diagnosis first happened, I was very angry because I've always kept myself very fit, very healthy. I'm always I'll have the salad, even though I really want the cheeseburger type of person. So I kind of felt like my life was a joke and that everything that I believed in was wrong. But now I realize that being fit has really benefited me, especially when I think about what I have been through in the last 16 months and what I'm going to go through pretty much forever. So I continue to keep my fitness as a priority, as it's something I can control, it's something positive, and I know it will give me a better outcome. So we moved to Charleston about 7 years ago, but by the end of 2023, I decided to ramp down my work schedule, and I stepped down as Director of Wellness and Fitness at the YMCA. I just wanted to teach a few classes a week, have a few clients, and actually have time. So 2024 was pretty amazing. Daily, I would think to myself just how great life was right now. My schedule was perfect. My husband had more time than he used to. And we got to do fun things like walk the Ravenel or take the dogs downtown and go split some cake at Carmela's, which I highly recommend. I thought we finally started the next chapter of our lives, and this is going to be great. But then at the end of 2024, about a week or so before Thanksgiving, I found a lump in my left breast. I didn't panic. I thought it's probably a cyst. It was the size of a little gourmet jelly bean, but it was definitely there. I called the doctor the next day, But by the time I got to see the doctor, because it was the holidays and then I got sent for the wrong mammogram, by the time I actually had a biopsy on my breast, it was the very beginning of 2025. It was the first week on a Thursday, but I still wasn't worried. The next day, Friday afternoon, because everything happens on a Friday or a weekend or a holiday, I was at home getting ready to go to a client's, and a message popped up on my phone informing me that I had results from my chart. So I opened up my phone thinking it's going to be nothing. And I read this report and I see things like invasive ductal carcinoma and something called a triple negative breast cancer. And I remember the word aggressive popping out at me. And I was stunned, and I did what I'm sure a lot of people do. I made sure it was my name and my birth date and, the right day of the biopsy, and then I shut the whole thing down. And then I opened it and reread it, and I did that about 10 times, hoping another report was going to show up. And then my phone rang, and it was a doctor who I had never met before in my life. And he said to me, "I'm so sorry. You have breast cancer, and you need to call your primary care doctor, who will refer you to a breast surgeon and an oncologist. Do you have any questions?" I had about 1 million questions, but the only thing I could get out of my mouth was, And we hung up, and that call lasted about 2 minutes. I did call my primary doctor several times. I told the receptionist I needed to speak with her, that I had just been diagnosed with cancer. And while the receptionist did give me the name and number of a breast surgeon and oncologist that they referred people to, 5 o'clock came around and I never got a phone call back from my doctor. I called the breast surgeon's office several times too, because the earliest they could see me was in a week. And I found that a little unbearable when I had just been diagnosed. There seemed to be no urgency. Nobody wanted to talk to me who could actually give me information. At this point, I hope you understand not only the fear, but the frustration I felt. Like I was patient 7,896 and nobody cared about me. Why was there no urgency? I understand the medical community can be overwhelmed, but nobody should ever find out that they have cancer through an app or a portal. Nobody should hear for the first time that they have cancer from a doctor who has never seen their face or knows anything about them other than a report or an image. It's cold, it's cruel. My husband and I were just lost that weekend. But the unbearable week passed, and we went to the breast surgeons, and I remember there was a white plastic Christmas tree on the reception desk, decorated with pink ribbons all over it. And there were posters everywhere about early detection and self-breast exams. The breast surgeon did make us feel better. He was a very "come to Papa, I got this, you're going to be fine. Your lymph nodes look good, this is solvable." And he hugged me. He told me I was going to have surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation to cancel whatever plans I had for the year, but at the end of it, I was going to be fine. In the office with him was a breast navigator who gave me her card, and she explained how I was going to feel through chemo. She gave me a loose leaf binder that was about that thick, with every resource in it available to me because I was just diagnosed with breast cancer. I could get wigs and scarves and hats or bras, massages, facials. There were support groups in person, online, and there were phone numbers in the back that I could call anytime for just about any question that I had. I was told many "yay you" early detection, as an MRI showed my lymph nodes were indeed clear. So my husband and I wrapped our heads around the fact that I had stage 1 breast cancer, and we told our children and thought, okay, well, 2025 is going to suck. But by the time I'm taking my Thanksgiving turkey out of the oven, I'm going to be fine, and this is all going to be behind me. And then I met my oncologist. He explained all about breast cancer to us and what was going to be happening to me and why. But then he told me he was making an appointment for me to go to something called staging, basically a CAT scan to check the rest of me. and that the other doctors were going to tell me I didn't need to do this. But he said, if you were my wife, I would tell you to go, so I want you to go. And he asked the nurse in the office to make the appointment for me sooner rather than later, is what he told her. He also made her make appointments for a bone scan, a brain MRI, and another appointment with him after all of those. He said to me that if the staging was okay, that we would cancel the other tests and he would see me after my breast surgery. But the way he looked at me, I just knew something was off. I now know that he did not like the way the images of the breast tumor looked and had been having a little back and forth with the radiologist and the breast surgeon about it. Because apparently when you have a tumor in your breast and your lymph nodes are clear, you are stage 1 breast cancer and there's no need to do any further testing. But he did not like the way my images looked. And I cannot thank him enough, because if it wasn't for him, I would have had surgery and I would have had chemotherapy for a cancer that I did not have, and I probably would not be here with all of you this evening. I did go for that staging, obviously, and of course it was a Saturday night when I get another email from my chart saying my test results are in. And I looked at it because I hadn't learned my lesson yet. This time I saw things like lung mass and the word metastasis. And I don't think I really saw much after that. You never in your entire lives could believe that a woman could wish so hard for stage 1 breast cancer and a good case of pneumonia. There were many other tests and procedures in the weeks that followed. One day alone, I had 3 procedures in a row. I had a Pleurex drain put in because my lung chamber was filling up with fluid. I had had a thoracentesis. I had a lung biopsy, and I had a port put in because we knew I was going to be getting chemotherapy. It was quite a morning. Eventually, the biopsy on my lung and having the lab rerun tests on the biopsy of my breast led to my oncologist, Dr. Balil, calling me one evening and saying, "Look, love, I'm so sorry, it's your lung. It's not breast cancer. You have lung cancer that went to your breast." And he kept telling me that there was treatment, that he had treatment for me. Now, the chances of lung cancer going to your breast are 0.2 to 0.27%, so very, very rare. But I still had one other appointment on the books with the breast surgeon, and it was very different from the first one. This one was brief. The surgeon was clearly uncomfortable because this wasn't something that he could fix. He told me that nobody was telling me that I had 6 months to live yet, and that I was now the oncologist's, and he left the office. The breast navigator left right after him, and all of those resources in that book she had given me, those all left too, all of it. It sounds funny, but I actually felt like I had been demoted. I learned early on that there was a very big difference when going from breast cancer to lung cancer. Please understand, I'm not diminishing breast cancer in any way. They have just done an excellent job of making society aware of it and getting support. But if breast cancer was a darling of the cancers, lung cancer was definitely the redheaded stepchild. There are no lung navigators with giant books of resources. In general, society views lung cancer differently. I have met women in the last year who won't tell anybody that they have lung cancer because they are afraid of the reactions that they will get. I've had people say to me, "I didn't know you smoked." Well, I never smoked. I was the healthiest person in the universe, but does it really matter at this point? I also felt very much like a failure because of all of those yay you early detection. That was gone. I mean, I'm a personal trainer. I have really good body awareness, so how did I not know that I had this tumor? There's no self-examination you can do on your lung. And apparently, you can't feel something that's 4 millimeters in the center of your giant lung. And if you don't smoke and you are symptomless like I was, nobody ever thinks that you might possibly have lung cancer. This is something, as a society, we need to change. When we saw my oncologist for the first time after the correct diagnosis of lung cancer. My middle daughter met us there, and she thanked him for saving my life and through tears asked for a second opinion. Dr. Balil immediately was, of course, who wouldn't? And he asked her if the lung oncologist from MUSC would be okay with her, and she said yes. He called that doctor right there in front of us and made an appointment for me with her, Dr. Alexander, for 2 days later. He then told us he was still awaiting more information from my biopsies. He was hoping I had a biomarker where you can better target the cancer, which is the future right now for cancer. But he wanted to start chemo ASAP because my breast tumor was getting big fast. When I did meet with Dr. Alexander, she too hoped I had one of these biomarkers. She told me she would be staying on my case with Dr. Balil, and I could call or see her anytime. She also sent samples from both my biopsies to a second lab to double check everything, and I felt confident I had good eyes on me. When writing this presentation, I realized how much I went through last year, and I honestly don't know how my husband, my children, and I did it. Basically, I had 12 rounds of chemo with a little hiccup on one of them because eventually your body gets tired of certain chemo drugs. Wasn't fun. The pleuric drain was removed surgically in April, but unfortunately, I wound up having cancer seeded in me from that procedure, another rarity. We did not discover that until August of 2025 when, for the last time, I looked at the results of my scan in a patient portal. I had cancer all around my side and a tumor that soon grew under my rib, on my rib, under my breast, and it hurt. 15 rounds of radiation on top of chemotherapy followed. My doctor was trying hard to get me out of pain and this new growth under control, especially because my husband had planned a family vacation to Greece that I'd always wanted to do someday when we had money. And we were leaving in a month. My doctor is very in favor of me living my life, and he was thrilled that we were going. He sent me to Greece with every medication under the sun, with all of my paperwork and his personal numbers just in case. He wanted to make sure I was well prepared and could enjoy this trip with my family, which I did. By the time I got back from vacation, Doctors Balil and Alexander decided I really needed to be on an EGFR targeted therapy. I had tried one in March, but I had a very bad reaction to it and had to discontinue after 8 days. I had also tried immunotherapy that summer, but it was not effective. So while I have an EGFR, which is fairly common, I have a mutation that is ultra rare, under 1% of people. So my doctors weren't sure which treatment would actually work on me or not. Knowing I'd lived in Connecticut, they knew that going to a doctor at Yale would be easier for me than some other places, especially if I had to stay for any length of time. So they gave me the name and number of an amazing EGFR specialist up at Yale. Good friends picked me up at the airport and insisted I stay with them. My son took me to Yale and stayed with me during my appointment. The doctors there told me there is no research saying these treatments will not work on you. There is just no research saying that they will, because you've never been represented in a cohort. But they agreed with my doctors in South Carolina that we needed to try targeted therapy. They told me they were on my team now and I could call them anytime and see them anytime, and so could my doctors in South Carolina. They ran all of my biopsy information into their database at Yale and a few days later called me and my doctor and discussed what their database told them was going to be the most effective treatment on me. They wanted to make sure that my doctor was comfortable with that since he was the one who actually saw me and had to administer it. I love that none of this was, we are dictating this to you. Instead, it was a huge collaboration between my main oncologist, Dr. Balil, Dr. Alexander at MUSC, and now the team up at Yale. These doctors discussed and figured out what was going to work best for me and listened to me as well. And I'm so incredibly thankful for that. Dr. Balil, I know, will do anything as long as it's in my best interest, and that's how it should be. It lets me trust him and the treatment he sets for me. He tells me all the time, Leave your cancer here and go home to your handsome husband and your family and go to the symphony and go to dinner. Plan your trip to Italy this year and enjoy yourself. Enjoy life, because that is how you beat cancer. While that's easier said than done, I can do it because I trust that what he is doing is correct. Plus, I have joined groups like LCI, and I hear what other survivors have been through, what their treatments are, their testing. I know that everything that should be being done for me is. So this past January, almost 1 year to the date since my breast biopsy, I started on amivantamab. I was apprehensive to start it, but my doctor explained things and walked me through it beautifully and was very prepared as to minimize all of the side effects. So far, I'm doing well, and on my PET scan in February, it showed that all of my tumors are gone. The one that was planted in me, the original one in my lung, both gone. And chemo last spring had taken care of the one I had found in my breast. My doctor's office is now working hard to try to get another drug that goes with the AMI called lazertinib, sometimes called Lazcluze, because my insurance company refuses to pay for it, despite all 3 sets of doctors wanting me on it. So we are appealing to the pharmaceutical company, J&J, to try to see if they could give it to me, and I'm hoping for a positive outcome. When I was first diagnosed correctly with lung cancer, I looked online, but I could not find any support groups in my area. I found Lung Cancer Initiative by luck when searching online and wound up emailing and then having a conversation with Cheryl LaCroix, who I instantly felt I had known for years. While LCI is mostly in North Carolina, she told me about their virtual luncheons that I could attend and that they do some events in South Carolina and hoped to do more, like tonight. She then invited me to a survivor event dinner up in Raleigh-Durham with my husband, even got us a hotel room since it was a 4-hour drive. We went and walked into a restaurant of people we had never met before, and when we left, it was as if we had known these people forever. When my husband and I went back to our hotel, we literally wept because we had just met people who were lung cancer survivors of 2 years, of 5 years, 7 years, 15 years. A woman who spoke that night had had a lung removed over 20 years ago, and there she was, thriving. We cried because finally we found hope, and that's what Cheryl and everyone else at LCI is about. I also attended a 3-day retreat with them last fall, not usually my thing, but I was very glad I went as I met people and experienced things, all positive, that I will never forget. And it was at an LCI virtual support meeting that I learned to appeal to the pharmaceutical company about the drug instead of my insurance. So many people, old friends, new friends, neighbors, my beautiful family, even students from years ago in Connecticut. I have had so many people who have offered help and made kind gestures, cards filled with good wishes, blankets and books of hope to take to chemo dropped off on my front porch, dinners made by friends for those yucky chemo days, offers to live with friends in Connecticut if I ever needed to stay at Yale or MSK, texts and calls of support. I have had such an outpouring of love from so many this past year. I have doctors who I trust and my main oncologist who encourages me to live my life and let him take the worry of the cancer. I have my warriors at LCI who understand exactly what I am going through and offer help. I have my husband, my rock, and my children, my joy. And in 2 months, I will also have my first grandchild, which makes me so happy. My heart hurts. And while I have slipped into the under 1% chance of this happening to you door several times with my cancer, I intend to slip under another one where I'm up here telling you all about my grandson's graduation from college. So with all of these amazing people in my life, what I really am is a delightful, very lucky woman. I just have had something unfortunate happen to me, but I'm getting through it. So cheers to more research, more treatments, better outcomes, and to all of you. Thanks so much for listening.